Welcome to The Debate. Our subject today takes us to one of the most consequential events of the late Roman Republic, the conquest of Egypt in 30 BC, and of course, the dramatic downfall of the Ptolemaic kingdom under Cleopatra VII.
And the central disagreement here is really rooted in finance, politics, and historical narratives. The question is, did Octavian successfully annex and liquidate the colossal material treasure associated with the last pharaoh to fund his nascent empire?
Or was the ultimate personal prize successfully denied, concealed, or maybe even destroyed by Cleopatra herself? I'll be arguing that Rome's seizure and immediate conversion of the bulk of those assets provided the essential financial shockwave Octavian needed to stabilize the Principate.
And I will counter that. Despite Rome's massive political and economic takeover of the country itself, Cleopatra's sophisticated, strategic denial ensured that a significant and, I'd argue, symbolic portion of her immense personal wealth was denied to her conqueror, forever denying Octavian the satisfying totality he craved.
So let's begin by establishing the desperate reality facing Octavian immediately after Actium. The victory at sea in 31 BC was strategically crucial, of course, but financially, well, it was a disaster waiting to happen. Before he even reached Egypt, Octavian was in acute financial distress. And we can see this manifested physically in the numismatic evidence. When we study coin hoards from that era, something like the Cinto Calmaggiore hoard, Mark Antony's legionary coinage issues consistently outnumber Octavian's own war coinage by a margin of roughly 10-1. I mean, that stark disparity is a physical manifestation of Octavian's immediate crisis. He simply did not possess the liquid capital necessary to pay the massive armies that had just secured his victory.
Right. The bill had come due.
Exactly. The severity of the crisis is undeniable. In 30 BC, Octavian was forced to rush back to Italy, specifically to deal with the unrest among his discharged veterans. These soldiers were angry because they hadn't received their promised military rewards, the premia, which were essential for their discharge and settlement. He was fighting a war on credit.
Precisely. And the conquest of Egypt provided the single, immediate solution to this financial insolvency. The historical accounts are quite explicit about the immediate course of action. They state that Octavian melted down all of Cleopatra's splendid treasures, gold and silver plates, ornaments, vast stores of bullion, converting them directly into coinage. This swift, massive influx of capital allowed him to settle those military debts instantly. I mean, the ancient sources are unanimous that the single act made Octavian, now Augustus, a fabulously rich man practically overnight. That treasure served its primary historical function, providing the foundation of liquid finance needed to end the civil wars and establish the Principate.
I see why you foreground the Roman financial necessity, but I think that necessity only reinforces the success of Cleopatra's strategy of denial. She possessed the very asset he needed most, and she was determined to control its final destiny. We have to remember the sheer scale of her power and resources. As the undisputed ruler, she literally owned the country, possessing personal wealth estimated by some historians to be around $95.8 billion in modern US dollars. Now, we have to treat all ancient wealth conversions with caution, of course, but it confirms the vastness of the prize.
Sure.
That wealth was a language of power for her, and she had a clear strategy of deliberate denial. She didn't just threaten to destroy value. She used the threat of immolation, publicly stating she would burn herself and vast amounts of her treasure within her prepared tomb. This was a direct psychological play against Octavian's economic goals.
And this intention isn't just recorded in, political maneuverings. It's supported by persistent archaeological inquiry, the ongoing search for her ultimate burial site, particularly the work led by Kathleen Martinez focused on the temple complex at Taposiris Magna, about 30 miles southwest of Alexandria. It suggests that a full recovery by Rome never occurred. I mean, why else would archaeologists spend decades looking for a prize that was supposedly entirely seized and melted down 2,000 years ago?
Well, the denial of her person and the denial of her wealth, I think they run in tandem. Consider the recent findings at Taposiris Magna. The discovery of a deep 4,300-foot tunnel heading seaward, linking the temple complex to a newly uncovered sunken port. This evidence suggests a highly sophisticated, integrated network designed for concealment, or maybe even a final escape or smuggling attempt designed specifically to safeguard her burial, her legacy, and perhaps the most valuable assets from Roman seizure. It points toward a plan that was executed successfully enough to leave the ultimate material prize lost to history.
We have to distinguish here, though, between Cleopatra's intent and Octavian's execution. Octavian's acquisition was transformative for the Roman state primarily because he annexed the entire economic structure of the Ptolemaic kingdom. And that goes far beyond looting a strongbox. This conversion of Egypt into Aegyptus Redacta, the organization of Egypt as the emperor's personal domain, that was Phase 2.
Phase 2 was vital, yes, but Phase 1, the immediate liquidity, was provided by the royal cash. The historical records of the liquidation of gold and silver plate are just too extensive to dismiss. We know Octavian acquired the core royal wealth because, well, he had to. He converted the Ptolemaic revenues into his personal property, dramatically boosting Rome's annual revenue. This economic restructuring stabilized the new principate fundamentally, but it was the precious metals that paid the bills in the immediate term.
I would argue that the historical consensus often conflates the financial acquisition of the region with the successful cornering of Cleopatra's personal treasury. The stability you cite was achieved by annexing the entire productive mechanism, the grain supply, the tax base, the land, which was, of course, massive. But that infrastructure is fundamentally different from the portable, high-value luxury items she had full control over. The threat of immolation, the offer of a golden scepter and crown after the defeat, all of it indicates that the main, high-value personal cash was already sequestered or denied during that negotiation phase. Octavian gained the revenue stream, which was fantastic, but that doesn't mean he secured the entirety of the luxury items she had specifically threatened to destroy.
But let's look at the financial proof of his desperation and what that forced him to accept. The very fact that Octavian used his adversary's own currency, Antony's legionary coinage, as payment for his victorious troops demonstrates the severity of his need for any liquid coin. I mean, this confirms that the later liquidation of Cleopatra's precious metals was not merely a bonus, but an essential step to meet those massive military financial commitments. If he was willing to utilize the currency of the man he just defeated, how could he possibly neglect the massive hoard of precious metals right in front of him?
But the use of Antony's coin simply shows Octavian was pragmatic. He was leveraging existent circulating currency, which is good governance, not necessarily proof he secured the entire treasury. And let's return to Cleopatra's mindset, because I think that's key to this idea of denial. Consider her famous demonstration of extravagance, dissolving a pearl, worth perhaps 1,000,000 sesterces, in vinegar just to drink it. This wasn't merely a display of wealth. It was a powerful political statement, demonstrating she was willing to destroy immense value for symbolic effect, or to communicate her absolute contempt for the value systems of those trying to capture her wealth. This is the mindset of a queen who would logically destroy or hide her entire fortune rather than let it parade through Rome.
And the denial of the treasure runs precisely parallel to the denial of her person. Her successful suicide-denying Octavian, the ultimate spectacle of parading her in chains, was a profound failure for Roman propaganda. She meticulously researched methods of death, likely utilizing an Egyptian cobra or perhaps even poison, ensuring a quick and relatively undisfiguring end. It demonstrated ultimate control over her final presentation and fate. The absent queen marred the entire spectacle.
I'm not convinced that the missing queen translates into missing gold. Rome achieved the ultimate symbolic victory by claiming the wealth publicly, regardless of the precise inventory. Octavian celebrated 3 great triumphs, with the final one dedicated entirely to the Egyptian victory. He dragged a large, highly visible statue of Cleopatra, with an asp clinging to her arm, through the streets and forced her twin children to walk in the procession.
A statue is not the queen, though.
No, but the enormous quantity of loot he did display, accompanied by images of the Nile and the captive country, successfully signaled to the Roman world that the wealth was captured. The subsequent physical appropriation, the removal and erection of Egyptian obelisks in Rome, further symbolized the absolute military control and financial absorption of the state. Octavian prioritized the political spectacle and the practical use of the gold and silver over retrieving every single jewel.
But the political spectacle was marred. The ongoing intensive search for her tomb, strengthened by tangible evidence like that 4,300-foot tunnel and the associated sunken port complex at Taposiris Magna, suggests a sophisticated and successful attempt at concealment. Octavian may have displayed immense wealth, but the enduring mystery means he failed to secure the ultimate material prize, leaving it lost. I mean, why would he settle for a statue of the Queen in Canes when he could have had the real queen in her full treasury? He settled because he had no choice.
We have to accept the victor's prerogative. The intention of Augustus, the victor, ultimately defined the fate of the material treasure, acquisition and economic utility. He allowed her tomb to remain, showing a degree of respect, but he systematically stripped her royal lands and converted her physical wealth into liquid currency to secure his rule. The acquisition served the primary, massive historical function of financing the end of the civil wars and stabilizing the entire Roman world. That political and economic reality, I think, outweighs the theoretical absence of a few specific chests of jewels.
But it's crucial to analyze the value system here. Cleopatra's intent was to deny Octavian the opportunity to parade her and her immense personal wealth, which was in her culture the very language of power and sovereignty. Her successful suicide was the final act of control over her fate, consistent with her earlier willingness to destroy a fortune like that dissolved pearl for the sake of a powerful statement. Her final choice to potentially destroy or hide vast amounts of treasure was a subtle yet massive blow against the total submission Octavian craved. This was defiance he could not fully overcome.
That defiance certainly complicates the narrative, I'll grant you, but does it negate the historical reality of the massive financial boon? The explicit ancient records detailing the melting down of precious metals directly correlates with the sudden dramatic stabilization of the Roman financial system. We are talking about the foundation of the Principate. Octavian acquired what mattered most: the entire economic structure, the revenue stream, and enough liquid capital derived from the royal treasury to secure his position.
While the annexation of the kingdom was undeniably a catastrophic financial and political gain for Rome, the precise fate of Cleopatra's personal, immense material treasure remains a persistent and frankly fascinating point of history and archaeology. Her final acts, from threatening immolation to establishing potential concealment networks and choosing suicide over capture, demonstrate a successful assertion of agency. It's a testament to her determination to preserve her legacy from Roman hands.
So the historical records and ongoing archaeological endeavors reveal a complexity that goes far beyond simple total seizure. Ultimately, the narrative of Cleopatra's treasures involves both Octavian's massive, essential financial gain and the enduring mystery of the specific, symbolic wealth he was, in the end, successfully denied.